As teachers, we want our students to have access to a wide range of materials. We also want them to use these resources in innovative ways to solve problems, share information, and illustrate their own ideas. Unfortunately, misconceptions about copyright regulations have limited the scope of many teachers' activities and subsequently narrowed students' experiences. Copyright directly affects how creative works are shared, edited, and expanded upon. By definition, copyright refers to an author or creator's exclusive right to reproduce, share, and modify their own work. However, copyright law is meant to encourage the spread of creative works, not inhibit usage. Today's participatory culture encourages creative endeavors and the sharing of finished works via the Internet. Most new productions rely upon contributions from prior works, whether through direct application or indirect influence. Thus, if teachers want students to produce new works, they need to help them properly access and utilize copyrighted materials. Unfortunately, lack of knowledge about copyright has excluded this topic from many school curriculums. If students do not learn copyright rules, they are more likely to break them. Additionally, school officials who do not feel comfortable with copyright tend to create overly restrictive policies that ban the use of copyrighted materials in many classes. Restricting students' access to copyrighted materials means they are left with only those pieces considered part of the public domain. The public domain includes works whose copyright has expired, public laws, and those items donated to the public by their creators. Unfortunately, few modern relevant pieces are considered part of the public domain. Copyrighted materials can be used for an endless array of teaching activities. A current news article might illustrate a key social studies concept. Photographs may bring the natural world to life, and critiquing top 40 hits can excite a music program. All of these options and more would be lost without the use of copyrighted work. Thankfully, though, educators can use copyrighted materials under the doctrine of fair use. Fair use is an element of copyright law created to protect the rights of users. It is primarily addressed in Section 107 of the U.S. copyright law, which outlines circumstances under which fair use applies. Further clarification was provided in 1961 in a report on the law. However, it is still up to educators to understand fair use and how it applies to their work. Fair use permits the utilization of copyrighted materials without permission or notice to the original author under certain circumstances, specifically when the material in question is transformed in some way. Products created following fair use rules can be published and also sold for profit. 4 key factors must be considered when trying to claim fair use. First is the purpose and nature of the secondary work. If these are identical or even similar to the original, usage may not fall under fair use. Next is the portion of the work used, though there is no set percentage, and lastly, the new work's effect on the original's market value must be considered. When using copyrighted material, fair use requires the work to be used in a unique way to reevaluate, change, or enhance the original. This is referred to as transformativeness. Some types of transformative use include parody, commentary, and criticism. For example, many documentaries repurpose film clips from other productions to tell a compelling news story. It is up to the user to determine if their work falls under the definition of transformativeness. For teachers, this is a good way to get students to critically evaluate their own work. As they weigh their transformative value, they gain an understanding of how they are contributing unique ideas to our culture. Secondary works that are not considered transformative or that infringe upon the original owner's rights are not permitted under the Fair Use Clause. In these cases, permission from the copyright owner must be obtained in order to use the work. Additionally, fair use excludes the usage of a particular copyrighted material for the purpose of avoiding purchasing the original. Unfortunately, duplication for economic gain has become an increasingly common problem. Consumers can now download copies of nearly any media to avoid paying retail value. However, using a copyrighted piece solely for entertainment is not covered by fair use. This was demonstrated in the famous Napster lawsuit in 2001. Only copies that violate fair use are considered illegal. Plagiarism, which is the copying of a work in general, is an ethical issue, not a legal one. While we as teachers want to hold our students to high standards and expect them to demonstrate their own knowledge, copying a material is considered legal as long as it is done in a transformative way. Ultimately, understanding fair use requires careful balance. the cost to the copyright owner must be weighed against the social benefit of a new work. Too much restriction stifles innovation, while too little restriction detracts from creative projects and diminishes motivation for production. To better understand this balance, let's look at some projects we might see in a typical school. In one classroom, we may find a history teacher asking students to examine several copyrighted political cartoons in order to create their own cartoon about an upcoming election. In this case, the teacher's actions and the students are permissible under fair use. She is using copyrighted materials in an educational and transformative way. In another room, we may find some English students diligently writing alternate versions of their favorite novels. Their teacher allowed small sections of the novels to be copied directly, while other parts were rewritten to tell the students' modified stories. Here again, the students' work falls under fair use. The copied segments are brief and being transformed into new stories. These examples help clarify fair use, but there are still many myths that teachers fall victim to. One myth is that students can use any materials as long as they are cited. Fair use is not a blank check to use any copyrighted product. Even with a citation, if you are not using the work in a transformative way, you do not meet the definition of fair use. Another myth is that the fair use guidelines produced by various agencies must be followed. However, there are no legal guidelines for fair use, which is meant to be flexible and interpretive. Therefore, guidelines, such as those set out by the music industry about how much of a song you can use, are not legal documents. Understanding copyright opens many doors for teachers and students. A thorough grasp on fair use makes teachers more likely to bring diverse materials into their classrooms. This in turn broadens students' perspectives. Meanwhile, students who understand copyright themselves are more likely to emphasize their unique ideas and share their works with others.